Welcome everyone to the Lofi Poli Sci podcast. I'm your host Michael Pickering. That's right, Lo-Fi as in low fidelity, low quality, in your face, messy as can be global news show. It's Monday and you're listening to Pickering Unplugged. Today we're going over 5 stories from the past 7 days that I think are most important and why. And there's no time limit on this. Pickering Unplugged goes until it's gotten. Simple as that. So what have we been talking about lately? Well, my 5 picks of the week are shadow economies, the international diamond industry, democracy leaving Hong Kong, Armenia-Azerbaijan, and the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict ending, ? And finally, saving a swan and being a good human being. So let's kick it off with our first pick of the week, shadow economies. This topic comes from our top 10 list last week, and we're not going over the list again here, but we're going to pull a few things from it. First, what is a shadow economy? This is the part of the economy that is made underneath the table, off the books, not reported or taxed by government. It's money that isn't included in calculations for a country's GDP or anything like that. And frankly, it's difficult to know exactly how much money is made in a country that the government doesn't know about. Now granted, the list from last week comes from the calculations done by a German economics institute. Go back and check it out. And in my opinion, if anyone has a shot at coming up with good numbers on how large shadow economies are, my money's on them. So what kind of money are we talking about? Anyone who works for cash and doesn't report it. That's part of the shadow economy. You have bartenders, servers, grass cutters, babysitters, agricultural workers, anyone who works for tips. And yes, anything illegal that's being sold, be it guns or drugs, or sadly even people. And it also includes legal things. Things being sold illegally, though. Someone steals something and then sells it for cash. It could be a legal good that they're selling, but if they stole it, it's still the same thing as being illegal. Or even someone who owns something, but then sells it and doesn't claim that cash sales as part of their income. That's also part of the shadow economy. So if you ever sold a car for cash and didn't claim it on your taxes, well, don't worry, you're not the only one out there. But that money is part of the shadow economy as well. You see, that's 10 easy things to put on the list right there that are part of the shadow economy. But there's most certainly a lot more that you can add to that list. And that's part of what makes it so difficult to find out how big a country's shadow economy is. And as a byproduct, how much money the people of the country are actually making. Now, all that being said, who cares? Why would this even make my top 5 of the week? Well, one, and honestly, because I think it's interesting as hell to consider how all our money is circulated around without anyone even knowing. People always talk about the black market. Please, if I had to make a calculated guess, I'd say the majority of the shadow economy, depending on the country, most certainly does not come from the black market. It comes from money made legally that's not reported. But why does it make my list other than that? Well, it has to do with a bigger discussion about development and developing countries, also known as the majority of the world. Now, to reference the list without going over it again, the top 10 countries with the largest shadow economies were all advanced, developed economies, some of the richest countries in the world. And for countries like this, they've obviously made development work without that income. However, for developing countries around the world, shadow economies have a massive impact on the government of each developing country. An impact on being able to provide goods and services to their peoples. You see, governments, for all their faults, they provide roads, water, sewerage, trash collection, electricity, hospitals, clinics, schools. You get the point. The government of a country provides the basic staples required to lead a healthy life, with a possibility of upward mobility in the future. And shadow economies, they hurt developing countries' government's ability to provide these services. It's a significant factor to consider when thinking about why development is so difficult. And that's why it makes my top 5 this week. But now let's keep going to my second pick of the week, the international diamond industry. So on Friday, I went off a little bit on this topic, and I'll just say, sorry, not sorry, Lo-Fi Nation. But don't worry, I'm not going to rehash that here. Instead, we're going to talk about why I think it's an important enough topic to make my top 5. So diamonds. are an extremely lucrative commodity that don't come from Tiffany's. Well, where do they come from, you may ask? Well, lately Russia seems to be producing more than any other country in the world, and Canada is coming up second, it appears. However, more diamonds are collectively mined in African countries than either of these two countries. And no, I'm not going into the particular leading African countries that mine or export diamonds for several reasons. But if you're interested, I'm sure you'll find them. Diamonds, though, in short, are money. They're internationally accepted currency. They have an internationally accepted value that is artificially kept high, which I explained on Friday and won't go into again. The point is, diamonds are used as international currency for a multitude of horrible transactions around the world. If you have diamonds, you can buy anything, because they're always in demand and are always valuable. A country's currency may have its ups and downs, but diamonds are pretty stable. What's more, you can travel with them anywhere generally, and there's absolutely nothing illegal about it. And if there are import regulations on carrying a specific amount of diamonds into a country, they are one of the easiest things to smuggle into and out of countries. They aren't made of metal, like guns. They don't give off smells, like drugs. And more importantly, they're lightweight, and a small amount of them is extremely valuable. And what's more, unless you have a geologist handy, or an extremely knowledgeable diamond cutter or smith or curator, they are untraceable to the regular person. You don't know if they are conflict diamonds, blood diamonds, money laundering diamonds, drug diamonds, human trafficking diamonds, and on and on and on. And of course, before you even say, several of the top diamond corporations in the world came under heavy fire, and some people went to jail and paid heavy fines in the 1990s and early 2000s because of news breaking about conflict diamonds coming out of Africa, breaking international law, that were fueling civil conflict. And yes, some companies are going through a more rigorous process of making their diamonds more legitimate and making sure that their production are not hurting peoples. Cool, I'm sure that plan's working perfectly fine. Whatever, that's not our point here. The point is the byproduct of our Friday discussion about the price still being kept artificially high by these companies that make you pay more, and as a byproduct, the real reason this makes my top 5 list. These practices directly lead to diamonds being the perfect international currency for organized crime across the globe. Top organized crime syndicates and major human trafficking networks can operate in diamonds and never have to worry about the movement of cash or bank transfers. And of course, they still use both, I know. But diamonds, well, they use those too. And now you know. Personally, sapphire is my birthstone, but obsidian is my favorite rock. That beautiful black volcanic glass. Now that's where it's at, Lo-Fi Nation. For me, at least. Anyway, to our third topic of the day. Democracy leaves Hong Kong. And quite a few of you wrote in last week in response to this story, and how the last pro-democracy legislators in Hong Kong had resigned. Some saying it was sad and they should have stayed. Others saying they understood why they did it. But all of you saying that it was a sad day for Hong Kong and democracy. And it hurt. And I feel it too. So why does this make my top 5 this week? Well, we started this thing called Lofi Poli Sci back in March of this year. And this is one of the original stories that we started covering. We've been watching the events in Hong Kong unfold for 9 months, Lo-Fi Nation. And this is how democracy dies in Hong Kong. Write it down. This was the week. On November 11th, 2020, a full 27 years before Hong Kong was supposed to lose its autonomous status from Beijing, democracy died. About 7.5 million people no longer live in a free place, and no longer have freedom fighters and their legislature fighting for democracy. This makes my top 5 list not because we've been watching this just for 9 months, but because we've been watching this happen for over 15 years. For 15 years straight, the organization Freedom House, that looks at freedom across the world, has recorded declines in freedom. For 15 years straight. Hong Kong and the 7.5 million people there are the latest in that 15-year streak. And from Lo-Fi Nation to you, Hong Kong, we're still watching, and we're still with you. Regardless of the other countries standing by for 15 years straight and letting this happen, your message and your story will keep going with us. The Umbrella Revolution. Now it's time for our fourth pick of the day, and what seems to be another conclusion to events we've been watching for 6 weeks now. Armenia-Azerbaijan and the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict ending. Yeah, so last week, Russia and the two countries got together and put a ceasefire together, a truce agreement. 2,000 Russian troops are going there to secure the ceasefire, and since then, it appears to be holding. Firstly, it is a good thing the fighting has stopped. War, there's nothing good about it. The number of lives lost are still being calculated, but that's not something we're about here at Lofi Poli Sci. If you want to hear body counts, it won't be from us. The first human being that lost their life was too much, and everyone after was just too many more. Let's simply be thankful it's over, and look to what's coming now. So Armenia gave up, it appears, not just the Nagorno-Karabakh region, but some surrounding areas as well. And Armenians and opposition politicians, as well as some of the Prime Minister's own party, were quite pissed and felt betrayed. Mass protests broke out calling for the resignation of the Prime Minister. Opposition tried to orchestrate something to remove him, but he's still there. However, today, the Foreign Minister of Armenia resigned and signaled disagreement with the Prime Minister, and it appears an ousting is gaining traction in backdoor talks. So keep your eyes open on this, Lo-Fi Nation. Lots could be going down this week in Armenia. But what about what's going on in Nagorno-Karabakh now that the fighting has ended? Well, Azerbaijan has delayed taking over the area until the end of next week to allow time for Armenian military and civilians to leave. And now, and I'm not going to use any adjectives here, you can describe it for yourself. But it appears that some Armenians leaving the region are burning their houses as they leave. And I don't have numbers on this. Reports are not saying how many. It could full well be just a few cases. We don't know yet. But Azerbaijan is labeling it as ecological terrorism, and they are quite pissed. This could be huge depending on the scope of the actual events on the ground, because this could provoke Azerbaijan to move up their timetable and start forcing Armenians out, in an effort to keep them from burning down buildings and homes that Azerbaijan could use. So that, mixed with the possible ousting of the Armenian Prime Minister for signing a deal that Armenians apparently don't want, these two things mixed together could reignite the conflict really fast. That's why this makes my top 5 list this week. Because fighting ended, which is great. But we are still walking on eggshells, people. Keep your eyes open, Lo-Fi Nation. And now to our 5th and final pick of the day. Saving a Swan and being a good human being. So last Thursday, our feel-good story, we covered Ariel Cordova-Roja and her beautiful 30th birthday adventure saving a swan by carrying it whilst walking, then taking it in a car ride with some good Samaritans that picked them up, and then taking a subway to finally meet a wild bird rescue team member to take the swan to the rescue for treatment. Bay, the swan, is doing fine. And Ariel Cordova-Roja is a good human being. Now why, you may ask, would this make my top 5 picks of the week? Simple. Because we all need reminding that such good people still do exist. And every day they are out there doing good deeds. These are the people on the ground, not fighting every day, but living every day to make our world a better place. Through kind deeds like that of Ariel, our planet does change for the better. For every person she motivates and inspires, that's one more person, not fighting the good fight, but living by example, by living the kind life. And let's wrap it up for the day like this, Lo-Fi Nation. Tomorrow, my good deed will be to be kind to a complete stranger and tell them thank you for being there for me. That's how I'll live tomorrow and help to make our world a better place. But a question to you. What kind deed will you do tomorrow? Write in and tell us your stories as you make someone else's life better, simply by being who you are. And that, my friends, is Pickering Unplugged. Always remember that Lofi Poli Sci is more than just me. It's the we that we be. Pickering, signing off.